thank you all so very much for being here. And thank you for being patient. The process has been about 2 solid years of doing this. You saw me in this green shirt at the junior high more than a year ago.
Have you washed it since then? I hope so.
There's information on the websites, there's information that we'll try and get out to you tonight, but we appreciate you being here. The process is a little bit, it's very legal, but it's time sensitive. It's going to take time to get on the ballot, time to hold the ballot, time to get people sworn into position, and time to get them up and running. We're trying to do everything we can to get anyone who's interested in participating in that to jump in with us tonight. If you want to see what's going on, come drive the boat. It'll be fun, you'll like it, and I think it will be helpful for everybody because we really hope that this will be a city run by the people. And I've been given $10 to give as many Gage 4 jokes as I want, but I'm not giving any, I'm not saying anything, I'm just carrying on. So let's do that now. Okay, if you're ready to start, we'll roll the slides. Okay, who's doing the transition from what we've done as elected officials to what we've done as citizens to what still needs to be done to jump through all the hoops. So it's a vocabulary lesson for all of you, and then a jump in and say, where do we go from here?
Thank you, Mark. A round of applause for Mark. He is an incredible person. He has been the host with the most, and his composure, his elegance, his good humor is a hard act to follow. I do hope he applies to be the next host on The Tonight Show when Jimmy Fallon is done, but I don't know, Mark. You got a good career ahead of you. Before we start, as you know, Mark was the lead sponsor, and my second slide was prepared weeks ago to thank the sponsors. They reviewed this and took it out. Can you believe this? You're so humble. So I want to recognize the sponsors at this point. Shanna, always there. Jeannie Wendell, where's Jeannie? Miss Brandy Hammond, where are you at? And Mr. Horseman, Richard Webb. And someone could not be here tonight. Nick Dahlkemp. He kept these cowboys all in line. He's project manager. They saw more spreadsheets over 2 years, I think, that Elon Musk may have seen in the last month. But Nick really has a gift for project management. He went from, overseeing big projects to build battleships and all kinds of stuff to little old Ogden Valley. So Nick can't be here. He just got, like many of us, a little hip or knee replacement, whatever. He is doing well and is feeling really fine now. And his wife, Tammy Dahlkemp, is here. So Tammy, make sure you tell me thank you. And a special note, he was working through agony over the past 6 months, so he would be here if he could, but I hope he's feeling better. A few volunteers who have been throughout all of these presentations. Craig Hansen, who has always done the AV and the setup. Craig's a veteran to boot. Les Vieira, who's run the video. And finally, Andy Prim is not here tonight, but he saves us from really amateur graphics that some of us try to do. Andy does the fine posters. So that's Andy's great. And Kay Hoagland. I'm just a volunteer. And tell me if you're having trouble hearing, seeing. We'll do the best. This is a beautiful space. And thanks to Huntsville for letting us have it. It's quite wonderful. So here's what we're going to talk about tonight. Why bother? Why prepare right now? More about that in a moment. A little bit of the history from sponsors to startup. You know, there have been a few names and 2 or 3 different organizations. We'll explain that. What do we have to do? What's the work? And who's going to do it? And finally, we're going to break up into volunteer teams in each of these corners with the labels, as Mark pointed out, various categories. And you'll see why we have those categories. As Mark said, this is a law-heavy process. And so we have a bunch of lawyers helping us. Most of us are retired. So bear with us if we got a little legalese here. So, why prepare now? I've got to move this a little bit. Why now? What's the urgency right now? The timeline is really tough. The state legislature has revised and revised this, and we still have a really bad set in open window in which to prepare. So, what this means is, I want to show you why the candidates will need our help. There's candidate declaration. Anyone wants to run, we'll go to the library locally and file a declaration in June. As Mark mentioned, there's a primary. And then there's a good amount of time until the election. We're not even ready to roll yet. It takes about 3 weeks for the election staff to review and confirm that the election was appropriate. And then you end up with what's called a canvass, where the county officers strictly review what's gone on, take the recommendations of the election office, and confirm who has actually been elected. Our elected officials will then have a little bit of authority. The statute at that point between the canvass and the time they take office, January 5th, allows them to do some preliminary things, you know, like file the map with the county and the state, look at contracts and sign some tentative agreements and the like. But they're not really operating yet. They're getting prepared to operate. Why is that so hard to do? You'd think, oh, they can do that all. But there are 21 days, 21 business days during that gap. Not much time. It's over the holidays. So we've got to help them be ready. We've got to look into all the different areas it takes to set up a city, have the documents ready that they may consider to sign, and hopefully they'll be in a great position to start business open shop on January 5. So that's the challenge ahead of us. Okay, I talked about there's been kind of a process of organizations over the last 2 to 3 years. We know the sponsors, the 6 heroes, and their duty was file the petitions, go through the process, and get on the ballot. They finished their work when they submitted the districts. The statute provides no further work for them to do, but I assure you they're going to be hard at work. The next group is the transition team. That's not something under the law. It's something that was formed by 2 sponsors, had some select volunteers simply because they had certain skills appropriate for this area, and we were happy to be joined by the Wasatch Front Regional Council, Madison Avila. Madison's position is part of, the Utah League of Cities and Towns, and funded by the governor's office. So these are the folks who worked on this. Many of you recognize Wayne Pyle, who'd been a city manager, did a lot of lectures. We are seeing their work tonight. But then we have Ogden Valley Startup. And Ogden Valley Startup is the organization that's going to be working this year to bring all that work into concrete action. And I'm sure some of you were a bit confused about what is the startup organization. And it was partly arose from the state funding requirements and the state financial reporting requirements on elections. We had two separate entities working. The sponsors we've talked about, they had their own entity incorporation. But then we had a separate campaign committee. You may have seen Friends of Ogden Valley. Each of them filed with the Lieutenant Governor's office, made required reporting of fundraising, and the law also governs how we wind up as organizations if we have extra money. They're in limited way to use this money. You can give it back to donors, or you can give it to a charitable organization. The sponsors had spent well and wisely. They had some money left. Fortunately, and thanks to the community, the campaign committee had about $8,000 left. And so we conferred with the LG's office, looked at a way to go to the top donors, 500 and above, about 10 donors of the 50 who donated, and then ask them, in terms of the rebate and refund you might get, you can opt to take that money, or you can roll it over to help the startup organization. And most said, we want to help the startup organization. We even had a gentleman who was active in the campaign, had to go away for one of those 1 or 2 year trips that happens a lot in Utah. We called him in New York, and he said, I gave that money to help start up the valley. You roll it over. So that's what we're doing. All of these, by the way, on this site, disclosures, you can see their financial reports. So there should be no surprises. We were very careful. Now, what is it that we want to produce? This sounds all kind of vague and wishy-washy, and it just sounds like a lot of work. The best way to think about, gosh, sorry y'all. Oh yeah. Now the best way to think about it is, you know when you get a new phone or a printer, and you open up and there's that complicated instruction book. It's like, oh my gosh, you're not going to read this heavy thing. You want a quick start manual. So what we are producing as a community and as volunteers is essentially the startup manual, a step-by-step guide that we can hand to those elected officials and say, here's what you do. Give us a call if you need it. So that is, here's essentially kind of what we're going to do, what we're going to be prepared. It will be mostly electronic, but also I like 3-ring binders, old school. Highlight them, see what you can do. Now, as we mentioned, this transition team, 2 sponsors and a small group of volunteers, had done work in a lot of it. The 2 sponsors involved, got this going last July. Knowing that the campaign was off and running, they met about every 3 weeks to go through what do we need to do to get a startup. They produced an enormous amount of work. You can see it here. I won't go through all of this. You may be familiar with volunteers. We asked a lot of you to sign up. We've got a database and we've matched your interest to what we need to do. Legislative Watch was Leslie Loeffel triggered us and said, there's this odd bill that Mr. Musselman is trying to muscle through, and that's where you saw the quick action in response. And it goes on, a bunch of legal research, and that will continue. Now, who's going to do the work? It's an awesome amount of work once you look at it. And it's a pretty steep learning curve. So we realized there's a do-it-yourself where we volunteers do the work. Benefit, local talent and knowledge. Problem is, we all go on vacation and we all have various outside obligations. So we've got to balance that and have hopefully another source of backup. The price is right, we'll work for free, but we'll probably need a bit more money still to do things. The other option is turnkey, ready to drive. We have been talking to Marriott Slaterville. Their attorney is very gifted. He's also the city attorney for Huntsville. I guess that would be the town attorney. He is accustomed to working through startups, and he has been helping us for about 6 months or so, advising on odds and ends. So he is already giving us some very helpful guidance, but they have proven expertise and will help get us ready to go in January. There may be a cost, but we're hoping we can perhaps get the county to pay, but we shall see. This may be done under an interlocal agreement between Marriott, Slaterville, and Weber County, but under negotiation. We will have to see. They will not be doing all the work. We will still have a division of labor between the do-it-yourself volunteers and Huntsville, or if we look at another group to help us out. Here are some, it's too bad I recorded, that took my title away. It's what happens next for all of us. With the volunteers, we're doing the match process. Those of you here, those online, we've got you matched to areas that you expressed interest in. We want you to participate in the work teams, practice leadership and followership. Too much focus on sometimes is given to leadership. We need also people who will be team players and support whoever is guiding the work they're going on, they're doing, and on, but everyone should consider being a candidate. Because as you are doing this work, you're going to be educated about what it takes to run a city. So consider being a candidate. For candidates, people who are already thinking about running, join a transition work team so you can understand how the city operates. There's a ton of information from all those lectures over the summer about the business of running a city. And there are outside websites as well. League of Cities and Towns has a ton of information on their website. There are these tasty little information sheets. They're booklets. This is the most recent one. Madison brought some. We will loan these out to you all. It's fine print, but you can get an idea of duties and powers of a mayor, of a council person, etc. We'll also have the easy version, the quick version for you. And finally, talk with friends and neighbors about how to get involved in this. Next steps for our work ahead, we're dividing and prioritizing the tasks. That's part of the work tonight. We're going to distribute the work. You see we're going to get deliverables and due dates for each group. And then we'll start the production and regular process review. We'll do other work, of course, communications and ongoing research. Here is a summary of the election dates. Gee, I did it again. For all you folks thinking of being a candidate. And this was provided by the election office. We don't run the election. It's very much more detailed. I have a printed detail sheet that they sent to us, but you can see the basic lay of the land here in terms of how this happens. And please run, it's a bunch of fun, and it's a way to meet new people. It's a good thing. Now this is one of the pieces of work that transition team produced. And once you know the tasks, once you've got a bunch of volunteers to do it, you have to figure out, well, how do we organize them? So we organized the group and the work actually into two big areas. One is critical path. That's stuff we've got to do. That's stuff that a city needs to do to operate. The other is fun issues teams. We're going to get some curriculum for the elected officials. Madison's going to help with that. this is really cool, and this came from a volunteer suggestion. We'd like to get the constituent groups in the valley, the farmers, the large, small farmers. Oh my gosh, what did I do? Oh, it's magic.
Two hands. Two hands.
We're almost done. That's what I get for being an Apple owner. It's like, touch the screen, it will do wonderful things for you. There you go. I could have touched the screen all this time. I told you Craig was great. Thank you, Craig. Constituent groups. Ag, local business, youth, seniors, there's more. Roundtable discussion with some suggestions for the new elected officials. City culture, this one I would want to do. What are the city colors? Do we have a seal? Could we have a city flower or insect? All kinds of fun stuff. What's our celebration? When are we going to have our Founders Day parade? All that kind of fun stuff we want in a city. Talking about the work, that is a little bit more detailed. We have broken it into 3 buckets here. One is administration, one is public works and IT, and the last is planning and land use. And within those 3 buckets, we have all of the detail in the task list that the team developed. So these will have a lot of work ahead, but the to-dos have already been figured out for you. So thank you for the transition team. So that's what we have today in terms of a formal presentation. Now to be more informal, we've broken down these issues into these 4 groups, and we have folks who have been working on those and preparing those, ready to sit and talk with you, see if that's what you want to do, or just explain the types and kinds of things that will be done within each of those teams. So at this point, we can break and get together and talk with these respective people in the respective areas. And I'd also say grab something more to eat and visit with each other. So that is the end of the presentation. Oh, a couple of questions. We're not going to ask a lot because we want to get you out and moving. I will be available to answer any question about the presentation. Can you talk to me later? Can we do that? Will that be okay? Okay, we'll take a question then.
Are we married to the name of the city?
Oh, I should have known that was going to come up. It's above my pay grade, and it's probably going to be considered by those officials when they are in a position to do so.
I'm in position to do so. All of those in favor of fair and square, raise your hand. The rest of you are on a team to figure out what the name is. You've had your chance. We got to figure it out ourselves. But it's important that we do figure it out. Please.
So will we all be able to vote on the selection of names?
How many of you want to vote for it? I'm asking you to raise your hands. I'm just trying to get a note. How many of you want to vote on a couple of candidate names? Not people, just names. All right, fair and square will be on the top of it. So, good question. Let's do that.
It's up to the new
There were-
elected officials.
There were 5 districts that were defined, and on the Incorporation website, there's PDFs of the district. Have you asked the county, or could you get the county to put the district boundaries on the GeoGizmo GIS system, so we know exactly where they are and all the lot numbers and things that are included in each district?
I'll do that. What they want is online GeoGizmo access to the districts 1 through 5. And it's a little bit, it's not the same size, obviously, because it's just people. Hit it.
Hi, I'm Craig. I did the technical work for the districting, the mapping. Those maps are available, I believe, if you go to Ogden Valley Incorporated website. They're not PDFs, there's actually a website. It's districting.hbhome.org, that's my website. That's just where I put it. And there's a couple of them. There's one where you can put in an address and see what district is in, and there's one where you can just look at it. So those are available to zoom in right down to the street level and beyond. They're all online. You can talk to me and I'll get you the URLs if you just want to come see me.
Yeah. Craig's a retired colonel out of the Air Force. He knows what he's talking about because he's been bombing people for Please.
Are the primaries partisan, like Democrat and Republican and blah, blah, blah?
We got a lot of blah, blah, blah up here in the valley, but there's no indication that there's a party supporting anybody. It's just individuals who want to file for their name.
And you only have a primary if you have more than 2 candidates.
If there's 2 candidates, they'll go directly to the final November election. If there's more than 2 from a district, there'll be a primary from those district voters to get 2 on the November ballot.
I just want to clarify, that is Utah law, that these level of elections are nonpartisan, and that's why they're held in the opposite years. So no one who runs for city mayor will run with a party affiliation. They run as a citizen of that city.
Okay, we'll take one more.
Going.
Thanks.
So Chad, thank you for coming out, have some food, get some fresh air.
Get on some committees. If you're a candidate and you think you want to run, please jump in and get on these teams.
And thanks for coming.